when the actual chaos is happening inside the WNBA right now, because it feels less like a basketball league and more like a conspiracy thriller on Netflix. Injuries, accidents, and questionable plays are stacking up, and fans aren't just raising eyebrows anymore. They're pointing fingers. At the center of it all, the Indiana Fever, a team that was supposed to be building momentum around its young stars and instead has become the epicenter of suspicious injuries, questionable hits, and a growing pile of frustration.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, LEXIE Hull, the so-called Trace LEXIE trio, who were supposed to be the face of this squad, are now being talked about like they're in some kind of hit list storyline. And the latest incident? Sophie Cunningham going down with a season-ending MCL tear after a collision with Bria Hartley. Now, normally, injuries happen in basketball. Bodies collide, ankles twist, knees buckle. It's part of the game. But this one had fans screaming intentional before Sophie even hit the ground. Because as Sophie crumpled, cameras caught Bria Hartley smiling afterward. Smiling. Cue the internet spiraling into theories, slow-motion replays, and TikTok analysis worthy of a courtroom trial. Fans weren't just mad. They were furious. But then came a twist. Sophie Cunningham herself got on her podcast and defended Hartley. Said it was just a play, just bad luck, nothing malicious. She brushed it off like she hadn't just had her season ripped away. And that's when things went from messy to suspicious. Because if you're Sophie, out for the season, sidelined by a controversial hit, why are you defending the person who took you out? Why the sudden urge to downplay? Some fans think she's being diplomatic, trying to keep the peace. Others think she's protecting league politics. And a few are whispering something darker. That Sophie knows more than she's letting on, but can't say it outright. And then came the real bombshell. Her comment that LEXIE Hull could be next. Let's pause right there. Because that statement isn't casual. That isn't, oh, accidents happen. That's a warning. That's Sophie looking at a pattern and basically saying, pay attention because this doesn't feel random anymore. And fans did not need to hear that twice. Social media exploded with theories about the so-called targeting of Fever players. Threads popped up documenting every suspicious hit, every coincidental injury. Screenshots, clips, angles. Even Caitlin Clark's early season groin issue got pulled back into the conversation. Fans connecting dots that maybe, just maybe, there's more to this than bad luck. And whether or not you buy into the full conspiracy, one thing is undeniable. The optics for the WNBA are terrible. Because the league? Silent. No accountability. No transparency. No fines for reckless play. No suspensions. Just crickets. And when fans are already angry, silence doesn't calm them down. It makes them louder. The accusations are brutal. Fans are calling this negligence. They're saying the WNBA values toughness over safety. That if this exact same sequence of injuries and incidents happened in the NBA, there would already be headlines, suspensions, statements, full-scale investigations. But here, it's brushed off like background noise. And the bigger Caitlin Clark's star rises, the scarier that silence becomes. Because she's the league's golden goose, and she's already endured cheap shots, hard fouls, and questionable accidents. And if the league won't step in to protect its most marketable star, then what does that say about their commitment to protecting anyone? Fans are calling it sabotage, and not subtle sabotage, blatant, targeted takedowns designed to derail the Fever's core trio before they can even get rolling. It sounds dramatic, right? Almost too dramatic. But when you start piecing together the pattern, when Sophie herself hints that LEXIE Hull could be the next casualty, it doesn't feel like overreaction anymore. It feels like a warning we're all watching in real time. Let's not forget, the Trace LEXIE trio wasn't just about talent. It was about energy, chemistry, momentum. These were the players meant to symbolize the Fever's rise. Caitlin Clark, the phenom. Sophie Cunningham, the firecracker. LEXIE Hull, the glue player. Together, they were supposed to be the foundation of something special. Now, one is recovering from injury, one is sidelined for the year, and one is allegedly next on the list. The Fever went from the future to the target board, and fans are demanding answers. Why hasn't the league addressed Hartley's play? Why was there no real review of the incident? Why is Sophie Cunningham the one doing the PR cleanup on her own injury? Why is LEXIE Hull being warned instead of protected? The WNBA's credibility is wobbling, and the cracks are showing. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't protect your stars, your league suffers. If fans think the game is unsafe, they stop buying tickets. If players think their safety isn't valued, resentment festers. If media think you're hiding things, coverage shifts from hype to skepticism. And right now, that's exactly what's happening. Fans aren't celebrating the Fever. They're speculating about sabotage. Players aren't talking about playoff hopes. They're worried about who's next. And Sophie Cunningham, instead of being supported, is stuck being the one saying out loud what no one wants to admit. LEXIE Hull could be the next casualty. This is how leagues lose credibility. Not through one bad play, not through one freak injury, but through a pattern of negligence and silence. Because let's be real, whether Bria Hartley meant it or not, whether her smile was a smirk or just bad timing, the fact that no one in the league office addressed it head-on, that's the real problem. That's why the fans are screaming sabotage. That's why conspiracies spread. That's why even casual viewers are side-eyeing every highlight like, wait, was that really an accident? The WNBA has a choice here. Step up or let this narrative spiral. Because right now, the narrative is eating them alive. And let's not forget the personal side of this. Sophie Cunningham didn't just lose her season. She lost months of work, momentum, and opportunity. Caitlin Clark's body has already been tested to the limit, and she's just starting her career. LEXIE Hull? She's waking up every day knowing people are whispering that she's next. Imagine the mental strain of that. The paranoia, the pressure. It's not just about knees and ankles, it's about trust. Do these players even trust that the league has their back? From the outside, it doesn't look like it. And the longer the silence goes on, the worse it gets. Because here's the kicker. Every league needs its villains. Rivalries thrive on tension. But there's a line between competitive physicality and dangerous negligence. Right now, fans feel like that line's been crossed, and they don't see the league drawing it back. So here's where we're at. Sophie Cunningham is out. Bria Hartley is walking free. LEXIE Hull is being whispered about as next. Caitlin Clark is in the danger zone every time she steps on the court. And the WNBA? Quiet. The storm's only getting louder. Drop your theories in the comments, because this saga is not slowing down. And hit subscribe, because if the WNBA thought the drama ended with Sophie Cunningham's injury, oh no, it's only just beginning. See you at the next meltdown. All right, let's dive even deeper, because this storyline, it's spiraling faster than a half-court heave at the buzzer. The WNBA is in the middle of something it's never faced before. Fans openly questioning whether the game itself is being compromised. And not because of bad refs, not because of scheduling drama, but because of a string of injuries that feel just a little too suspicious to be shrugged off as bad luck. The Indiana Fever, supposed to be one of the league's most exciting young teams, are suddenly the epicenter of chaos. And it's not just about Sophie Cunningham's MCL tear. It's about Caitlin Clark's nagging issues. It's about whispers surrounding LEXIE Hull. It's about the creation of this almost mythical group called the Tres Leches Trio. 3 players who were supposed to represent a new era for Indiana. And now, they're being talked about like they're targets in a crime drama. Let's sit with the Sophie situation for a second, because it's the spark that lit the fire. Sophie Cunningham, fiery, competitive, one of those players who doesn't just play the game, but brings an edge to it, goes down after contact with Bria Hartley. Now, like we said before, injuries happen. Basketball is physical. Bodies crash. Knees twist. It's inevitable. But here's what set fans off. Hartley's reaction. That smile. That split-second grin caught on camera as Sophie was on the floor in obvious pain. To the Fever faithful, it wasn't just a smile. It was a smoking gun. A flash of malice in a moment where sportsmanship should have reigned. Now, is it really that deep? Was Hartley smiling at something else? A moment with a teammate? A nervous tick? We'll probably never know. But perception? Oh, perception was damning. And perception is everything. Because within hours, fans were dissecting that clip like it was evidence in a courtroom. Replays slowed down. Screenshots zoomed in. Narratives built themselves, hardly meant it. The league knows it. They're letting it slide. And then, like a plot twist ripped straight from a scandal docuseries, Sophie herself hops on her podcast. She's calm, collected, downplaying everything. It was just a basketball play, she says. No bad blood. Wait, what? Fans didn't know how to process it. Some called her classy, sportsmanlike, refusing to stir the pot. Others said she was protecting her brand. Some even whispered she was being pressured not to escalate things. But then came the kicker, her warning about LEXIE Hull. Not said as a joke, not tossed off as an exaggeration, but with a weight to it. LEXIE could be next. And that's when fans lost their minds. Because once you frame a pattern, every little detail suddenly feels like proof. Caitlin's rough treatment all season, part of it. Sophie's torn MCL, part of it. LEXIE Hull being called next. Suddenly, people are looking at every hard foul, every elbow, every suspicious landing with a magnifying glass. And the theories? Out of control. Fans are saying it's a campaign against the fever. That rivals resent the attention, the hype, the Caitlin Clark effect. That targeting their trio is the easiest way to knock them off balance. Others go bigger, pointing fingers at the league itself, saying the WNBA is letting this happen to keep toughness as part of its image, sacrificing safety for physicality. And through it all, the WNBA stays silent. That's the part that's killing people. The absolute lack of response. No fines, no suspensions, no statements clarifying intent. Nothing. Just a wall of silence while fans scream for accountability. And let's be honest, silence always feels like guilt. Imagine if this happened in the NBA. LeBron takes a cheap shot. Steph gets undercut. Giannis gets taken out with a questionable play. Do you think the league would just let it slide? Absolutely not. There'd be press releases, disciplinary reviews, and a media cycle that lasted weeks. But in the WNBA, it's brushed off, and fans are furious. Because at the heart of this, it's not just about Sophie Cunningham's knee. It's not just about Caitlin Clark's bruises. It's not just about LEXIE Hull's looming next. It's about trust. It's about whether fans believe their stars are being protected, whether players feel like the league values their safety. And right now, that trust is hanging by a thread. The Fever in particular are carrying the weight of this storm. Because let's face it, the Trace Leches weren't just good players. They were the storyline. Caitlin Clark, the rookie phenom. Sophie Cunningham, the firebrand. LEXIE Hull, the steady hand. Together, they symbolize potential, chemistry, energy. And now, one is sidelined. One is in danger. One is already battered. It doesn't feel like coincidence anymore. It feels like erosion. And here's the scary part. Once fans believe the game isn't fair, once they believe outcomes are being shaped by negligence or malice, they check out. They don't invest. They don't buy tickets. They don't tune in. Because who wants to watch a sport that feels rigged against its own stars? That's the existential crisis the WNBA is staring down. This isn't just a Fever problem. This is a league problem, a credibility problem, a survival problem. And here's the thing. Players know it, too. You can see it in the guarded way they answer questions, in the coded comments about protecting each other and playing through physicality, in Sophie's half-defensive, half-warning tone when she mentioned LEXIE Hull. They know something's brewing. They just can't, or won't, say it outright. So what happens next? That's the million-dollar question. Does the league finally crack down? Do they roll out stricter penalties for reckless plays? Do they make a statement affirming player safety as the top priority? Or do they double down on silence, hoping the storm passes and fans forget? Because here's the thing, fans won't forget. Not this time. Not with slow-motion replays, podcasts, and social media receipts documenting every second. The internet has a memory longer than any press cycle. And every day the league stays silent, the narrative of sabotage grows louder. So here we are. Sophie Cunningham's season is done. Caitlin Clark's body is a battlefield. Lexie Hull has a target painted on her back, at least according to the warnings. And the Fever fanbase is watching like hawks, waiting for the next blow. This isn't basketball drama anymore. This is a full-blown crisis of confidence. And unless the WNBA wakes up, takes action, and addresses this head-on, they risk losing more than. You want more? Oh, I've got more, because this saga keeps unraveling like the most chaotic soap opera in sports. The Indiana Fever were supposed to be the WNBA's fairy tale. The team that finally shook off years of irrelevance, rallied around a new core of young stars, and rode the Caitlin Clark wave straight into the national spotlight. Instead, they've turned into a cautionary tale. And it's not because of talent, not because of coaching, not even because of chemistry. It's because their players keep ending up hurt, suspiciously hurt. Let's take it back to where this whole targeting narrative started bubbling. Caitlin Clark walks into the league as the most hyped rookie in history. Every arena she visits sells out. She's pulling TV numbers the WNBA has never seen. Naturally, opponents start testing her, bodying her, shoving her, fouling her harder than they'd foul anyone else. And it wasn't just fans noticing, it was players, coaches, commentators. You could feel the intensity. Now, physical play, that's part of the game. But some of the hits Clark took didn't feel like defense, they felt like statements. Welcome to the league. You're not special here. We're going to rough you up. The problem? The league didn't step in. No extra protection. No harsher penalties. Nothing. And when the league refuses to draw a line, guess what? That line gets pushed further and further. Fast forward, Sophie Cunningham goes down. A torn MCL after contact with Bria Hartley. And here's where it all boiled over. Because not only was the play questionable, but the aftermath, Hartley smiling while Sophie was writhing in pain, looked horrendous. Intentional or not, it looked like a hit job. And perception, friends, is reality. Fans immediately jumped to the worst-case scenario. This wasn't bad luck. This was sabotage. And just when things couldn't get more dramatic, Sophie herself, injured, out for the year, gets on her podcast and waves off the outrage. Says Hartley didn't mean it. But then she drops the line that turned a controversy into a conspiracy. Lexie Hull could be next. That sentence has haunted every Fever fan since. Because it wasn't said like a joke. It wasn't said with sarcasm. It was said like a warning. Like someone who's seen the pattern up close and is bracing for the next domino to fall. And Lexie? Poor Lexie Hull is now playing with a metaphorical target painted on her jersey. Every time she drives to the basket, every time she collides with a defender, fans are holding their breath like, is this it? Is this the place Sophie warned us about? This isn't paranoia anymore. It's expectation. And here's where it gets really messy. The WNBA silence. When fans scream sabotage, when players hint at targeting, when highlight clips of suspicious plays are going viral daily, you'd think the league would step in. Address it. Clarify. Reassure. Something. Anything. Instead, crickets. And the silence isn't neutral. Silence feels like guilt. Silence feels like neglect. Silence fuels the conspiracy that the league either doesn't care, or worse, that it benefits from the chaos. Because here's the dirty little truth no one wants to say out loud. Controversy sells. Drama sells. Rough play. Rivalries. Hard fouls. That's content. That's ratings. The NBA built its early legacy on battles that sometimes felt more like boxing matches than basketball games. But here's the difference. Those leagues also knew when to step in. They knew when to protect their stars. Because stars aren't just players, they're assets. They're the reason fans show up. And if you let those stars get taken out, you're not just losing games. You're losing trust. That's exactly where the WNBA stands right now. Think about it. Caitlin Clark is the most important rookie this league has ever had. Sophie Cunningham is a fan favorite, known for her energy and personality. Lexie Hull, while not as flashy, is a critical piece of Indiana's puzzle. These aren't benchwarmers. They're faces. They're marketing gold. So when all three are either injured, at risk, or literally called out as next, fans aren't going to chalk it up to coincidence. They're going to see a pattern. And patterns, once named, become impossible to ignore. And it's not just Fever fans anymore. The wider WNBA audience is buzzing. Neutral fans, media outlets, even players on other teams are side-eyeing the situation. Because if it can happen to Indiana's stars, it can happen to anyone's. This is how paranoia spreads. This is how conspiracies take root. And right now, the WNBA is watering it with their silence. Meanwhile, the Fever locker room has to be absolute madness. Imagine being LEXIE Hull, hearing your teammates say publicly that you're the next target. Imagine being Caitlin Clark, already battered by months of physical play, knowing you're one hard foul away from becoming a headline. Imagine being Sophie Cunningham, sidelined, watching helplessly as her team spirals into injury drama. That doesn't build trust. That doesn't build morale. That builds fear. And when players are scared instead of confident, it shows. On the court, off the court, everywhere. So now we're staring down the big question. Is this incompetence or intent? Is the WNBA simply dropping the ball on player safety, ignoring a situation that's clearly gotten out of hand? Or is there something more sinister here? An unspoken culture that says, let the physical play ride, let the stars take their lumps, it makes for better headlines? Neither answer is good. Because here's the thing. Once fans start questioning the integrity of a league, it's game over. Not the sport, not the teams, the league. The WNBA has worked for decades to claw its way into the spotlight. And Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, LEXIE Hull, they represent that spotlight. They are the storyline. To fumble this moment with negligence or indifference, that's not just bad management. That's self-sabotage. And the fans? They're not buying excuses anymore. They're demanding accountability, demanding consequences, demanding that the league stop hiding behind silence and do something. Because if the NBA can protect its stars, why can't the WNBA? If men's leagues can hand down suspensions and fines for reckless play, why can't this one? The double standard is glaring, and fans are noticing. So where does this go from here? Well, the Fevers still have games to play. LEXIE Hull still has to step on that court. Caitlin Clark still has to carry the weight of the entire league on her shoulders. And Sophie Cunningham? She has to rehab while watching the chaos unfold, knowing her warning is echoing louder every day. The stage is set for one of two outcomes. Either the league steps up, takes action, and proves player safety matters, or we get the next accident. Another injury, another viral clip, another wave of outrage. And when that happens, the conspiracy won't just be theory anymore. It'll be accepted fact in the eyes of fans. So buckle up, because this saga is far from over. The Fever story has shifted from underdog rise to survival thriller. Every game feels like waiting for the next shoe to drop. Every collision feels like a headline waiting to be written. And the league?